And I was talking with Grobel. He's the VP of product for Doorloop. And I was in a pretty salty mood about, you mentioned creative tension. And I think that's a great way to describe, because I think product design and product management attract a lot of go-getters that are used to driving.
Yeah.
So you're putting like two drivers in a car, like a product team. And I asked them, like, you're back. Most VPs of product, they usually were product managers or something like that. And I'm like, are you a little concerned that like, you have four different like job families that you're going to give preferential treatment to your job family that you came from? And
Mhm.
because I've seen it multiple times where that's what happens because that's what the VP knows.
Mhm.
And he said, I'm not a product manager anymore. I run a product org.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so I'm there to support like everybody. And I mirror to that, like anybody in this, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think the conclusion for me is it's like a RevOps org has closers and cold outreach people, and an engineering org has front end, back end, like all these disciplines. Like a CTO isn't like a master of all those things. They're
Yeah.
just not like a front end engineer anymore if they're the CTO. Like they run the engineering org and they hire leadership and directors and stuff like that. It's a different game. It's a different job. And so anybody could go to a head of product that didn't come from product management. I think Brian Chesky's like the poster child of a design person that runs product. And I really liked that. And then that made me feel more comfortable. I'm like, yeah, I actually think ideally they're the same thing. Like it's the same like business function, right? You're figuring out what's the value prop, what do they care about? Crafting the offer and then designing the experience around how they how you deliver the value of that offer to them. You probably want to have those departments in like the job families in the same group. And what are your thoughts on resolving the creative tension? Because my belief is that there's a lot of false beliefs causing that creative tension. Like, what have you
Yeah.
learned about that?
I think one, I think it's healthy and it's just natural because they're distinct roles for a reason, right? Each person is really bringing their own specialty, their own expertise, right? I'm not a UX expert. I certainly have views on it. I have opinions. Sometimes it's driven by purely opinion. Sometimes it's driven by what I think is relevant experience, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's natural to have these things. And my view on it is really that the way that you design for this, when I think about organization design, is I want these teams, right? These sub teams, these cross-functional teams, the product managers and product designers, see the way as solving it as just making sure that they understand that they share the goal of making the product successful, right? And it's because it's always a mix. It's always a mix of in different times. It's a mix of UX. It's a mix of business goals, right? These are the levers that you have to pull. And for different features or different products, they change at different times. And it's at least these two people, right, that need to be aligned on, hey, we want the product to be successful. And there's some trade-offs between making it the most ultra optimized thing for the end user possible and some business goals that might be sales driven or marketing driven, or in our case, partner driven, since we're B2B2C. And I'll give you one more for our particular space, at least where we are now, actually have we have a third contributor to this tension that's really important for us, of our tax subject matter experts, right? Because this space can be very complex, and a PM and a designer can understand that, but they don't understand it to the level that a CPA does, the significance of a particular moment. And so we actually have this complexity that we also incorporate and we build process around to make sure that we're satisfying, make sure users first, end users first. Okay, business, also make sure that we're satisfying business. And now we have to also make sure that our set of requirements from, are we saying the right things? Are we pushing the right outcome for tax? That kind of thing, and satisfy that, just because so much of that subject is also needs to be incorporated in the design, and there's so much nuance to it as well.
Yeah, I recently just did a product. A big part of Produce Pay is what we do is we provide financial products that are friendly to an agriculture business model, which is usually very cash strapped, low margin, right? And so the two big products are, they address the two different ways you could play the game, right? What's the game we're playing, right? And we'll play the game of produce, right? And really it's just about getting volume up the supply chain, and the size of that volume goes up the closer it gets to a Costco. And so there's two ways to play that game. One is you buy more productive land to grow more,
Mm.
or you buy product from another farm, but like lower than you in the supply chain, and then you try to do a markup to make some margin. And that's the cheaper option, right? And so we have a product called QuickPay that allows you to factor shipments so that you could like aggregate supply. And then the other one is, or you could build a $3 million greenhouse to expand production. And part of, and as you get, and is you're probably like intuiting, it's okay. Then there's a need for treasury systems and automating payments and like calculating how much we need to be like sending payments and how do we do the accounting to collect on those payments. And there's tax implications, right? And then, so in order to solve that, I think we did the extreme example, unless this is what you do, where we actually brought in like a couple of our finance team as like product manager, but like more like subject matter expert product managers into the team, where they had like the very granular expertise on what needs to be done to fill and automate payments in a way that actually helps our like accounting systems. And yeah, I always thought, oh, no matter how, like I could always do enough research to understand, but I think there's a reason there's like certifications and regulations around some of these professions we're denying software for.
Right.
Oh yeah, like me doing like 12 weeks of research, I'm like, as competent as a lawyer, right? Like, nah,
I think you've definitely hit on I want product managers to be confident, but also know when they
cool.
need to draw on experts and that
Yeah.
kind of thing, especially when it comes to regulation heavy places. Yeah, I think we have a similar dynamic, maybe even a little bit more. We actually have sitting a resident CPAs that are on our team, and they complete this triangle that we have when working on products. And we talked a little bit before about, at least when we're talking about our filing product, that is, it's a large experience for people who have done self-prep filing. They're pretty familiar with it and they know it's a long experience. At different points, different people drive, right? There are points where it's very tax content and tax logic heavy. And so there, design and product take more of a supportive role of how do we think about it in design systems and things to support the tax SMEs who are there playing more of a product role. They're actually designing some of our flows, designing some of those things, and we're providing a system for them to do that.